I recently, I want to say about a week ago, finally got around to watching the A24 film Heretic. Recently came out on HBO Max, whatever it's called these days. Um, I candidly was very surprised at how much I loved this movie. I'm always a big fan of thrillers. I am always a big fan of A24 movies. Watching the trailers for it, I really was thinking to myself something felt a little off, or it wasn't going to fully capture me or anything like that. And I could not have been more wrong about that. Movie is it circulates really three main characters in it. It is the two actresses is Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, both playing as Mormon missionaries that are trying to convert a man, which was Hugh Grant. That ends up being a little bit more than what they originally bargained for. Movie starts out with just the two missionary women that are going around town trying to preach the word of the Church of Latter-day Saints. You see a couple different moments of people teasing them and really just trying to make these two characters as realistic and human and not a odd, there's quite a bit of stigma around Mormonism and Latter-day Saints and everything else, just trying to make them appear as just normal people and being teased for what they believe in. So you have that little bit of a sympathy card going in for them, and then they go to the very last house that was on their route. It started to rain a little bit, a little foreshadowing action, and then you're introduced to Hugh Grant, who invites them into the house. And that is where it turns relatively quickly um, very sideways for these two women and becomes a full-fledged cat and mouse game, which you could tell from the trailer itself that's where it was going. I was not personally expecting it to be as in depth as it was. I will admit, watching it, I sat there and really thought to myself for probably the first half of the movie, is Hugh Grant really the villain in this movie? Because candidly, I agree with a lot of the argumentative points that he makes throughout this entire movie. Because essentially, what he does is, as he invites these women in, wants to challenge their belief and challenge their religion and really try to get to the bottom of what faith really is. And he does by the end of the movie fully gets to the bottom of what faith is really truly about. There are certain decisions naturally that I really don't agree with on it, but it was an oddly unique experience of feeling a lot of sympathy for the protagonists, I guess would be the best way to describe these two missionary women, but really empathizing with who the antagonist of this movie is and really kind of understanding where they're coming from. It was a really unique approach. There were a couple pacing moments, in my personal opinion, um, kind of towards the end of the second act going into the third act of the movie, that kind of slowed things down and made things a little bit on the wonky side, but by and large, I thoroughly love this movie. I plan on watching it again. I have recommended it to just about anyone that I've had a chance to talk about it with over the past couple of weeks, which really just ends up being my wife who watched it with me, my my roommates, and my boss, and that's pretty much about it. And now now anyone that is listening to this podcast, if I had to put a rating on it, I personally would give it a 8.5. I wouldn't say that it's otherworldly. I wouldn't say that this is a, a pinnacle of cinema or anything of that sort. But it was if you enjoy thrillers and if you enjoy suspense and if you enjoy religious discourse, this movie is absolutely for you. If you enjoy those three things, I could not recommend a better movie for you. And yeah, that's how I felt about Heretic.
This clip was brought to you by The Overcast, the official podcast of Oversoul Gaming, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast platforms.